wish you'd understand. I just wish that God had a better plan. I'm so confused. I need a redo. Inside of me that's begging and begging and pleading. I just wanna feel free. I just wanna feel lovely. I'm surrounded by love that's in pain. Can I wipe your tears away? Please don't hurt for me. I hate that it's for me. It's for me.
Hi, welcome back to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast, where I am trying to spread awareness about what it is like to live with chronic disease. I've been living with multiple sclerosis for the last 28 years. I talk about my journey as well as the journey of other chronic disease warriors all over the world, just to try to help people to understand what it is like going through that diagnosis, the mental health part of it, the family part of it, the relationship part of it. Today, I am sitting down with an MSer that I met online about a month ago. Meagan is from the state of California, and she got diagnosed with her MS in 2000. She was only 20 years old at the time, and she wanted to come on and talk about her journey. And by the way, Meagan actually has been diagnosed with fibromyalgia also. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And she is also a breast cancer survivor, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But please welcome to the podcast, Meagan. How you doing today, Meagan?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. So, Meagan, in the year 2000, you're 20 years old. What was going on in your life at that time that caused the red flag for you to go and see a doctor that you were having symptoms that led to your diagnosis of multiple sclerosis?
Well, first, my left thigh went numb, the outside of it, and my mom thought it was a pinched nerve. So we let that go for a week. It went away. Then about a week later, I was driving to school. I was going to college full time, working 5 jobs. And I was going to school and my eye turned all the way left, my left eye. And so I saw like the road in front of me and then the houses, and I was like, oh no. And I covered my eye and I continued to drive to school because I'd been sick so much. I needed to attend to pass the class.
Yeah.
And so I hurried up to the classroom. I sat down and she called roll and she looked at me and she was like, what's wrong with your eye? And I was like, I don't know. It just happened on the way to school. And she was like, you need to go have that checked out.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I need to be here, like she's like, I'm going to mark you as here. Go to the nurse's office or go to your personal doctor. You need to have that checked out immediately.
Yeah.
And so I did. And my doctor got me in right away. And that day he came into the room and he tested my eyes. And I thought he was going to give me like a referral to an eye doctor, like this isn't his ball of wax,
Right.
He's going to pass me on to the right person. Well, he said, I think it's multiple sclerosis. Let me get my partner. So he got his partner and he tested my eyes and he said the same words. And I'd never heard that word before.
Yeah.
Ever. So I'm thinking like I have something that obviously I have to take a pill for and it'll go away like everything else that you go to the doctor for, right?
Right. Right. So when they're
So
hey Meagan, when they're telling you, I mean, they're looking at your eyes, but they're still, I mean, they couldn't diagnose you just by looking at your eyes. Did they order an MRI?
They did. My eyes were doing some jittery motion as well as turned. So that's what led them to believe MS.
Got it. I got it.
And then they immediately had me go to the hospital. I did an MRI, did an eye test, an ear test, a cognitive test. I did everything, and everything came back, yes, you have MS.
Wow.
So I didn't have to do the spinal tap, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's crazy, Megan. I just think there's such a correlation between childhood trauma and our diagnosis later on in life. Let me ask you this, Megan. You're 20 years old, and I know back in '97 there were 3 DMTs out. In 2000, what were your options, and how did they treat your MS after they gave you that diagnosis?
Well, they sent me to a neurologist, and the neurologist gave me 3 choices of medication. I remember it as ABC. It was Avonex, Betaseron, and Copaxone. And those were the 3 options. I chose nothing at the time because I wanted a second opinion first. And so the only thing they did for me was give me steroids, which I feel kind of shortened my, what I call an episode, the series of problems that happened
Yeah.
with the leg, the eye, and then like left side of my face was paralyzed for a few weeks. Then my arm was unable to hold things for a few weeks. Then that went away. Then my right leg was like foot drop for a few weeks, and then that went away. So like my whole episode lasted like 2 or 3 months. And then I was okay for 11 months ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then bam, it would hit me again. So about every 11 months of being okay, then I would get sick again.
And you're still not on a
And
you're still not on a DMT at this time.
well, I went and got my second opinion. It took 6 months, and they informed me that by me not choosing a DMT at that time, that the disease was running rampant in my brain, and that I needed to choose something to slow it down. So I cried. It was me, my mom, my dad, and my best friend
Mm-hmm.
drove to Los Angeles, which was like 2.5 hours away. We went, and I cried. I didn't want to take a shot. I was severely traumatized as a child, being my brother's bone marrow donor and everything. So,
Right.
and I was a perfect blood match and everything for him. So it just brought back all that. And I didn't want anything to do with it at all. But I chose Copaxone. I chose Copaxone because it was the most natural
Okay.
out of the 3 options.
that was
Other 2 were kind of rough.
Yeah, when I went through my diagnosis and my options were Avonex and Copaxone, and my doctor put me on Avonex first because I figured, hey, it was only one. I only had to do 1 shot a week, and I'm like sitting here in my head, one's better than 7 days a week with Copaxone, so I chose the Avonex. And I only made it a month on that med because it made me so sick. And I would do it on Friday. I'd be sick till Sunday. And then I would get up and, work Monday through Friday, and I would do it all over again. And a month into it, I went to my neuro and I said, man, I can't live like this, doc. And that's when he put me on Copaxone. And it was more of a pain in the ass because I had to do it every day, but I didn't get sick. I think that's part of the journey is like, you gotta figure out what med your body reacts good to.
I eventually developed an allergy to Copaxone, and my throat was starting to close, and I was describing the symptoms to the doctor, and he was like, you're going into anaphylaxis. You need to stop that med immediately because it's not going to be good if you take another shot.
Yeah.
So I changed DMTs at that time I tried Avonex for a little bit. I couldn't tolerate that.
Yeah.
Then I tried Rebuff because that was a newer one. And then that didn't work very well with me. I was getting real sick. And then I tried Betaseron. And really the only thing that happened to me with Betaseron was headaches, really bad headaches.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this, Megan. When you're in your young 20s, and this is a new life for you, and you're just trying to figure this out. How did you handle the mental part of it?
Well, the mental part of it, I think my doctors did a good thing by preemptively putting me on Zoloft in order to manage depression.
Mm-hmm.
So it really kind of held back the mental aspect of the hardest part. It held that part back for like 10 years. But adjusting to having an illness, I went to my doctor here in my town because I got my second opinion in Los Angeles, had care here in my town. Then I said, well, what does this mean for me? Can I still have kids? And the doctor said, yeah, you can still have kids. And I was like, okay, I guess it isn't the end of the world, And then I said, well, what does this mean for me? And he looked straight at me and he said, in 10 years, you will be in a wheelchair. And so that would be at 30.
Yeah.
And then in 10 years after that, you won't be here anymore.
You had a doctor that actually told you that, Megan.
I am 100% like,
That's
oh gosh.
that is unbelievable. I can't even imagine a doctor telling me that in my young 20s. I know when I was 27, and I said the same thing to my doctor. I'm like, hey doc, what does this mean for me? What's my life going to be like? And he said, I can't tell you, Brian. He goes, you're in good shape, and you exercise. He goes, you can live as normal of a life as you can. But I mean, he didn't tell me I was going to be in a wheelchair. He just told me, you got to take it day by day and keep on fighting. I can't imagine a doctor sitting there telling you you're going to be in a wheelchair in 10 years and probably dead in 20.
Yeah. So I took that news very hard. And I wasn't necessarily depressed, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
I led a very party lifestyle for 4 years. Sorry. It was really rough. I didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
At all. I didn't care if somebody found me on the bathroom floor,
Yeah.
Didn't matter.
And that's the part of the battle that I don't think that people understand is just the mental part of it. You got a doctor telling you that, at 20 years old, that you're going to be disabled in 10 years and you're going to need a wheelchair and all that. And I mean, that I think that's the attitude that a lot of people get, when they get told things like that. And it's just so untrue that, even though you get this diagnosis, and it doesn't matter how old you are, your life's not over. You just got to figure things out. And, I know that where you're at now, again, is not where you were when you were in your young 20s, but I mean, it's a process. And, I think the quicker that we learn it, the better that we are, because it's a mental game from day one.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, Megan, this is the way you started out your journey, and, you were scared, and you were living your life like this. At what point in time, in the process, did you kind of flip the switch and say, you know what, I can't live my life like this. Like I can have another 10, 20, 30 years. I got to live it in a positive way. How did you kind of change your attitude on how you were going to be attacking your new life?
I just literally woke up one day and looked at my life and realized that it wasn't really any different than when I started. I had watched like a Dr. Phil show, and it said like ecstasy puts holes in your brain. And I was like, whatever, I have holes in my brain anyway. And then I just partied, and then woke up one day and realized, you know what? I'm no different than when I started. I looked around and found a husband and got married at 23 and had two children, one at 26 years old and one at 30 years old. And I just decided to live life for its fullest.
I love that, Megan. I love that, at a young age, even though you started it out living kind of reckless, that you did the switch flipped on and you're like, you know what? I'm not any different than I was before my diagnosis. I kind of went through the same thing during my diagnosis. I was scared. But I didn't let it stop me from getting married. I didn't let it stop me from having kids. I didn't let it stop me from working. I kept working up until 20 years into my diagnosis. I worked. Just because after that you get those words that you have MS, I just think you gotta figure it out as quick as you can. As quick as you can, you got to figure out that life is going to go on, and you got to take it on positive.
Yes, definitely. I realized my limitations and I eventually let go of one of my jobs that was like accounts payable. I couldn't mentally do it anymore. The cognition was really difficult. I was misplacing orders. I was not entering orders. Would forget and just file it away. And so I kind of took my job down to a more comfortable,
Manageable.
like I decided to become a waitress.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. I mean, that's not an easy job because you're on your feet a lot. But I mean, if like the cognitive part of it probably was an easier a route to go.
The cognitive part was the roughest part for me.
Right.
It really was. Just my lesions are in spots that say cognitive impairment, memory loss. I forget the other words it said, but it just screams out, oh my gosh, that is so me. That is so true. Everything that the reports say, if you look it up, which took me 25 years to look it up for the first time. So,
Mhm.
yeah, just this last MRI, I looked it up and it was very validating. I know a lot of people think it's scary to look up where your lesions are, but like the biggest ones, the ones that are noted, like this is your largest one, this is where it is.
Yeah.
You have another large one, the similar size on the other side of your brain as well. So I have issues bilaterally. It just goes on both sides.
Yeah. I
It's
know we
crazy.
I know we talked about this a lot in our lives when we're on TikTok together and all that. We were just on a live earlier today and we were talking before we started recording that if you look at you can't tell that you have MS. I mean, you stand fine. You bent over and picked up some of your the craft work that you did, the cross stitching that you did, and you were showing some of your art. And I mean, you can't tell, but to talk to you, you can tell that cognitively you struggle. And I know you're very deliberate on, how your speech is. And I know the reason behind it because of your MS, but I don't think a lot of people understand that. If they're in a conversation with you, they look at you and they'll be like, what's this lady on? She doesn't sound like she's sober. And that's not that you're under the influence. This is the MS. This is how it affects your brain.
It is. And then to boot, you stumble, then you look like you're drunk and you're slurring your speech and you're slow with your reactions. It looks like you're on something, but you're just struggling trying to walk and talk and carry a conversation on with somebody. It's really a hard struggle that I'm going through right now with my disease progression. I can feel it, even though my reports don't say anything but normal progression.
Right.
So that means there is some growth, but not a notable amount.
Yeah, I get it, man. So let me ask you this. You said you're married now. You got married when you were in your mid-20s and you got kids. I know you had 4 kids. And just kind of take us through that path of being diagnosed at 20 and going through finding somebody that understood it and maybe didn't understand it in the beginning, but maybe learned to understand it, and just the difficulties in the relationship part and even having the kids.
Yeah, it was it was definitely a journey. I would have to get off my DMTs for a month and then try to conceive for 3 months. And then I would have to get back on my DMTs if I did not conceive. And the reason being was so I would deliver in the cooler months, so it would be easier for me to recuperate. That was my doctor's request.
Jim. Yeah, go ahead.
So I just got off my medicine, got pregnant right away, and then had my first child. And during pregnancy, no DMTs, complete remission. I felt normal.
Wow.
Like, oh my gosh, I remember now. Like, that's the only time I felt normal after MS. It like completely shuts it down somehow, some way. And yeah, I ended up having 2 kids doing it the same way, going off the med, going back on if I didn't conceive, which with my second child, it took us 2 years to conceive. And then at 30, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Mm.
That was because of unanswered pains throughout my body that if a certain medication worked for it, it would be fibromyalgia. So the medicine worked. So the doctor was like, yeah, you have fibromyalgia now. And I was like, okay, no biggie. There's a pill for it. It's kind of easier to deal with.
Yeah.
My fibro
How do they
is under.
how do they determine the difference between fibro and neuropathy? Like, I have nerve pain, I have neuropathy. If I have back problems, I have spine problems. How do they determine that it is actually fibro? I don't know enough about fibro, like the testing, and to determine whether it is MS related or it's a different chronic disease altogether.
They said that if gabapentin worked for me to cure the pain or dull it at least, which is what it does,
Mm-hmm.
then it was fibro, that it was nerve damage
Got it.
caused by MS, but turns into another condition.
I know I'm friends with a lady over in the UK. Actually, she lives in northern or in France now, and she's in the same situation as you. She has MS, and she was later diagnosed with fibro. And I did a podcast episode with her early when I first started doing this, and it was just an interesting conversation with the correlations between the two chronic diseases.
Yeah, the correlation is amazing. So many MSers have a dual diagnosis of some sort.
Yeah, I know. It's just I've talked to so many other people around the world. There's a lady in Colorado that has POTS with her MS. I mean, it just seemed that there's a huge link to chronic diseases with MS and other chronic diseases. I'm seeing it and in the people that I'm meeting.
Definitely. I see it all the time, every day on TikTok.
Yeah.
The community there is great.
So let me ask you this, Megan. I know that you're in your second marriage, you went through a divorce and you have stepkids. And can we just like continue on with the conversation about relationships? Because I know that's a hard part. I went through a divorce 15 years into my journey. It's hard to find people, especially when you're newly diagnosed and you're just getting married. And I know that was in your situation, and that's since I'm very similar. And it's hard. It's hard finding that relationship. So I just want to continue on with how you went through your divorce and you ended up getting remarried.
Well, finding my first love was wonderful. And he knew everything about my MS and wanted to help in any way he could. And then things didn't work out for whatever reason, and it was my choice, not his choice. But uh, decided to get divorced when my kids were 3 and 1, and changed their childhood. So then I was by myself for a couple of years, struggling as a waitress, paying the mortgage, keeping the roof over the kids' heads.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found my second husband, and he's very understanding with the MS. He knows what it will entail in later on in life, and he's willing to, do what he needs to do. And he knows that I'm willing to do what I need to do if things go down the other way.
Isn't it important just to have somebody that, just understands it and can go through the journey with you? I know I found that with my wife. It was both our second marriages, and she has her own issues with her health. And, but I mean, we just get each other. We pick each other up. We know when we're down, we know when we're feeling okay, and we push each other. And I just think that's important, to have somebody that can support you in this journey.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful marriage that you have. That's so wonderful. I was really shown my husband's love when later on in 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and he took me to every single appointment. I'm talking every appointment with a radiologist, oncologist, that, every radiation appointment, which was every day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. He took me to every appointment, every infusion.
Yeah.
Everything. And he really proved his love to me during that time.
Yeah.
In my life.
That's just awesome, man. I love hearing that. I have a very soft spot for breast cancer. My mom passed away from breast cancer. She's battled it for 20 years. And you're already battling the MS and the fibro, and to go through that diagnosis, that's just another mental health grind on you that I can't even imagine you had to go through, and you're still battling to, you're in remission, thank God.
Yes.
The medications worked, and I hope that it stays that way. But I mean, the mental part of it has just got to be just an incredible experience to go through, Meagan.
It was definitely the cancer diagnosis was harder than the MS diagnosis, just because we all know about cancer, so I knew my brother had cancer and he passed away from it. And I knew what he went through for the 4 years that I saw him suffer. And I was absolutely terrified when he said I had cancer. He asked me if I had anybody there with me, and I said, no, I'm by myself. And then he said, well, I hate to tell you, but you have cancer. And he continued to talk, and my ears didn't hear a word he said after you have cancer.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, Meagan. I can't even imagine that, Meagan. And I know that we talked a little bit about this before we recorded. You were on DMT that you thought had a little bit to do with that diagnosis of breast cancer.
It's interesting. Yeah, because I was diagnosed in February, but in January, I was told to stop taking my DMTs of Texidera because my JCV levels were rising for the chance of PML. So she took me off Texidera. Then I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was told we're not going to do an MS med until after you're done with your cancer treatment. So I was like, okay, whatever. I guess that's just how it works, because I just pretty much roll with the flow.
Yeah, right.
Because if you don't, you're going against the stream, and it will never, ever stop being relentless
Right.
if you try to go the other way. So go with the flow. And yeah, I just pretty much was diagnosed, and then the pandemic happened, and then a lot of my issues, like having a lumpectomy, it was considered an elective surgery, like a nose job or a boob job, getting my cancer taken out of my body. And it was not allowed for months. I don't know if you remember that, but
Yeah, I remember that. I can't imagine, you in your shoes, being told that you're sitting there with cancer in your body and it's an elective surgery. I can't even imagine that, Megan.
looking at the news every day, waiting for it to not become elective or that elective surgeries were allowed,
Yeah.
every day looking at the news.
Yeah. Gosh.
And it took months.
Yeah. So, I mean, after they finally did go ahead and okay it, is that how they treated your cancer with radiation and chemo and all that?
Correct. I had to do the whole 9. I did 4 rounds of chemo, lost my beautiful hair that was down to my rear, and it was long and blonde and beautiful. And then I knew I was going to lose it. So I decided to cut it off shoulder length. And then about 2 weeks after that, I lost my hair.
Wow.
And it was like I ran my fingers through my hair, and like a lot of hair came off in my fingers. And looked at my husband and I said, "Oh my gosh, my hair is falling out." And he said, "No, it's not." And he walked over to my hair and picked up a chunk and yanked on it, and it pulled right out of my head. And I said, "Stop it, you're making me bald."
God, Megan, I can't,
So,
I just can't imagine that. How long did it take for the treatments for them to actually tell you that they had it into remission?
well, they said the moment that they cut it out of my body, I was cancer free.
Awesome. Awesome.
So radiation, and well, it was chemotherapy first and then radiation, but that was all because my cancer had grown so much during that time that I was waiting. It was graded on a scale of 1 to whatever. And if your number was 15, you had to do radiation. And my number was 17.
Oh, okay. Wow, Megan,
That's
just
or chemotherapy.
the stuff that the stuff that the amount of stuff that you have been through since at a very young age throughout your life, getting diagnosed with MS, then the fibro, and then the breast cancer, and and I know that I've known you for a couple of months now, and just to hear how positive you are, and and the grind that you've been through mentally. How do you do this? And keep I guess your sanity. You can say, I know that you talk about your she shed, and that's what I want to talk about, your crafts, because I know that it's so important for us that when we're going through these chronic diseases, when we are alone, it's important to find something to occupy your mind. And I think that's such an important part of your journey as to how you do that.
Yes, I am always in my she shed. My husband built it for me for Mother's Day one year. And I sit in here all day and I'm surrounded by supplies, endless supplies of whatever I want because I've purchased it. And some supplies I've had for 20 years. Like I have stuff so old, like it's amazing. And it keeps me busy, keeps my mind busy off of reality, I guess.
What are some of the what are some of the things that you make in your she shed? I know that you're making something for one of the MSers that we're both friends with, Chris, CJ. It's a really beautiful blanket, but just like kind of describe some of the stuff that you make.
I crochet blankets or octopus. I'm known as the octopus lady. I do diamond art and I frame them and I enter them into the fair every year. I do candle making, to just inventive stuff like a goofball caterpillar clothespin. Little kids like to play with that. I paint rocks into ladybugs. Little kids love that. And I made a booth. I'm a vendor. So I go out to events like craft fairs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I cater to children. And I do that because my prices start out at 50 cents. I have a lot of stuff that's $1,
Yeah.
$2, $3, $4, $5. That's like, I have a couple things that are $20, and then that's it.
I know you've gone live on a couple of those craft fairs that you go to and put your stuff out at, and I just think it's amazing, just the talent that you have, still with your MS and everything else, and it's just something that you use as a tool, and it's just such a cool thing watching you and just seeing the stuff that you make, and it's just an awesome thing.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. I am happiest when I'm in my she shed, and that's so sad. I love my family, don't get me wrong, but in here I'm free, and I'm sitting in a chair, so I'm not dealing with balance issues or anything like that. And it's all whatever I can come up with in my brain. And so I just sit here and think and create.
Yeah, and you're amazing at the stuff that you do. I know I've met so many amazing artists in the TikTok community. I know we're both very involved in. We're friends on there, and we're in lives together. And I know a lot of people that are chronic disease warriors like me and you. They find art. You got Jeff over in Colorado. He's an incredible artist, and Johnny here in Ohio. That does the podcast art for me, and there's just an amazing talent out there with people that have MS, and some people don't even realize they have it until after their diagnosis, because it was always just like a little, something that they liked doing when they were a kid, and then they developed it more after their diagnosis.
I think it has a lot to do with whatever I learned before MS, because that stuff seems to be more cemented into my brain versus new knowledge. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I totally get that. Let's talk about the community. No, I just talked about a little bit about it before. How important is that TikTok community with your mental health? I'm a 55-year-old guy. I never had a social media platform in my life up until 2 years ago. And when I did find TikTok, I was just like blown away. And now it's an important part of my life.
It is definitely, it's a daily part of my life. I have to check in with my MS friends every day. I have to know if they're okay. Some of us don't have people that understand and care.
Right.
And really, the community on TikTok is absolutely amazing. Since I found it, I check in every day.
Yeah.
If people don't hear from me, they wonder where I am.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing community. And I joked before, I'm a 55-year-old guy, and I'm very anti-internet and all that. And I think I think TikTok's awesome. There's bad parts of it, just like everything. But I mean, if you use it for the right reasons, it's such a good tool for us that have a lot of isolation, and we don't have a lot of people to talk to. Because we're staring at four walls like I am. My wife's out working and I'm home alone. So I jump on TikTok and I can talk to people from anywhere in the world that understand the position that I'm in, and we don't judge each other. If somebody says we're fatigued, we get that. We understand that. Or we're just having a bad day, and we celebrate the wins that we have too. And I love that about the community.
Exactly. It is so wonderful. I'm so thankful that I found it. I just stumbled upon it and I found Chris's live first. And then I found Randy. And then Randy really, like, before when I was in Chris's live, like, I didn't have a bio or anything. I didn't know how to run TikTok or anything like that.
Yeah.
So he's like, you need to get a bio and you need to do this.
Yeah.
So I did all that. And then I joined Randy's live. And then I saw Debbie and
Yeah.
everybody's just so amazing and so welcoming and accepting.
Yeah. And then Eric's sitting there. He's doing commercials for you for your craft fairs and all that. And it's just,
That was amazing.
yeah, it's just amazing how we just pick each other up and just do, we're just nice, you know, and we haven't even, some of us have met each other first, you know, in real life, but most of us haven't. We just know each other from TikTok. And it's like a family, though.
Yeah, it really is. I'm so thankful to have it. And like a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, you're on your phone all the time. And it's like, but I'm talking with people that get it, that I don't have to sit there and go, you know, fatigue is just a lot worse than your fatigue. And it's like this and it's like that. And you have to explain. And
Right.
And with the people on TikTok within the MS community, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do all that backstory.
Yeah, it's
You know?
yeah, it's refreshing, you know, just from a mental standpoint, you know, just to not have to try to explain yourself. You can just say how you're feeling, and they get it. They just understand it. You know, I wish the whole world got it like that, but they don't.
Exactly. You don't know unless you got it,
No, you don't.
unfortunately.
Hopefully they'll listen to us though, you know, because I mean, that's why I started doing this podcast and just started recording people's stories, because everybody's so different. And I think it's important just to hear it. You know, I think the more we hear it and the more we listen, maybe the more normal we'll be to the rest of society.
Yeah.
Hey, Megan, I really want to thank you for joining me today. Is there anything that you want to tell anybody out there that is listening that's in a similar situation as you? They got diagnosed with their MS and maybe now they're going through a diagnosis of cancer of some sort, just to how to stay positive and keep on fighting for the next day.
I just want everybody to know that MS diagnosis is not the end of the world. You can still live life. You can find love. You can have kids. You can do everything that you would have been able to do before diagnosis. You just have to try. Like, hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. You just got to find.
And to stay positive the whole time is even more difficult.
Yeah, you just got to keep finding a reason to get up in the morning and keep on fighting. And I know that's what you do, Megan. I talk to you all the time, and you're just a fighter. And I really admire that about you. I'm going to put all your information into the description of the podcast. If you want to follow Megan, she's just awesome. And the stuff that she creates, the crafts that she creates, she has a website link that you can go to. If you're interested in buying any of her stuff, she'll make it for you. She's just an awesome lady. And I really want to thank you for joining me today, Megan, and sharing your journey with me.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. All right. If you want to follow me on TikTok, you can find me MS Michigan Man 64. You can also find me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64. And I'm on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Until the next episode, this is the MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.